The following program is paid for by Lifespan Wealth Management, providing financial advice since 1993. At Lifespan Wealth Management, the main thing they do is provide retirement planning and advice and manage their clients' investment accounts. If you're looking for a financial advisor, contact their office at 478-922-8100 to set up your complimentary consultation. Lifespan Wealth Management has offices in Macon and Warner Robins for your convenience, and you can learn more about them by visiting their website at retirerelax.com. While you're on the site, visit the special report section, which provides great financial education information on many different topics. You can also sign up to receive their digital feeds, which are short videos providing great information relevant to retirement, investing, and matters that affect your money. They also offer seminars to the community at no cost. If you're looking for a guest speaker for your church or civic organization, give them a call to discuss the topics you would like them to cover. Again, their contact number is 478-922-8100. Now, from the Macon studio of News Talk 940 WMAC, it's time for Your Money with Sherry Goss, Randy Goss, Jonathan Eisner, and Corey Albrecht.
All right.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. It is, you got Corey and me today. Randy and Sherry took a much needed and much deserved vacation to Puerto Rico this week. Not jealous at all, are we?
No.
We got to hold the fort down here for them. Side note, before I get started, I had a gentleman tell me this week when I was meeting with him that within the last few weeks, our show did not properly air. He listens routinely on Saturdays, went to turn the show on at 9 a.m. on Saturday. This is within the last few weeks. He didn't remember exactly when, and he said that something else aired over our spot. So please, if that ever happens, any of our listeners, if that happens, please make us aware of it, because we don't always hear the shows live as we're busy on the weekends. We record on Fridays usually and air on Saturdays. So if that ever happens and we don't air in the right spot, please email Randy at rfmoney.com or Corey, Cory, at rfmoney.com, because we need to be aware if our show does not air. It happens from time to time. Okay, so Tuesday afternoon, very eventful week this week. In the after regular market hours, of course, Donald Trump announced a 10-day ceasefire with Iran. As has been the case many times during Trump's second term especially, the market whipsawed in response to the news. I was at my son's baseball practice, and I pulled up my phone, look at the after-hours markets and how they were performing, and all of a sudden everything was up in a very big way. Very, very green, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9%, everything up. And a lot of times that's the way it happens, especially when there's a lot of volatility in the air like there is right now. And as we've said many times, a lot of the time it happens when the market closes. So either in the evening, overnight sometime, early in the morning. In other words, at times when you can't really do anything about it because it's not normal market hours. What's my point with this story? Well, this is a prime example of why it is generally not a good idea to try and time the market. If you missed out on Wednesday's action, which was the next day after the Tuesday announcement, then you missed a whole lot of upside. And because the news came after the market closed on Tuesday afternoon, it wasn't possible to get in until sometime on Wednesday, when most of the gains had already occurred. It works the other way around too. When the market has a bad reaction to news, it's almost impossible to avoid it. Think back to Liberation Day, as it's now known. That was the day in 2025 when Donald Trump announced all the tariffs that he would be imposing on imports from other countries. The market reacted horribly to the news and immediately. And guess when that announcement was? It was at about 5 o'clock in the afternoon, after normal market hours. I was also at my son, it was a year ago, so I was at my son's baseball practice, and I remember seeing everything dropping 3, 4, 5, 6% in the aftermarket, and there's just nothing you can do. So no chance to get out and avoid the damage before it was too late, in other words. So these are two examples of why trying to time the market can and usually does not work well in the way of investors. If you're close to or in your retirement years, you need to have an allocation in your portfolio that minimizes exposure to huge market swings like these. If you're still in your working years and have time on your side like Corey and I do, then stay the course and stick to the plan during times of volatility. In fact, a lot of wealth can be and is generated by staying disciplined during times of volatility.
Okay, now back onto our normal stories. What a $5 Frappuccino can teach your teen. April is National Financial Literacy Month, And if you're looking for one conversation that could change how the teens and young adults in your life think about money, start with their coffee order. The $5 that could be worth $500,000. A daily $5 Frappuccino costs $1,825 a year. That's not a lecture, it's just math. Now show your teen what happens if you put even half of that into a Roth IRA starting at age 18. At a hypothetical 8% average return, annual return, $1,000 a year grows to nearly $500,000 by age 65. And because it's a Roth, the growth is tax-free. Potential $233,568 more than the same money in a taxable account over that period. You don't have to convince a teenager to give up coffee forever. You just have to make the invisible visible. Once they can see what small daily choices actually cost over time, something shifts. That's the foundation of financial literacy, and it doesn't require a textbook. It just requires real decisions with real consequences.
Yeah. I love articles like this because it takes real life, tangible things like buying coffee every day and says, okay, what if we were to, it gives you an alternate scenario. I think it's being generous with $5 Frappuccinos.
Yes.
Though. Kathy in our office loves to get, what's the place she gets down here? Scooters. And she'll tell you real quick that the coffees that she gets, and I don't remember what they are, they're some fancy thing, $9, $10, $11 per. I mean, she gets a military discount because her husband's active military, but anyway.
It's still a lot for coffee.
It's a lot. $5 is what this is saying. It's probably closer to $7, $8, $9.
I think 5 is if you're doing it yourself.
Probably.
I don't think that's
probably true. Or if you're getting just a basic coffee at one of these places with cream and sugar, it's at least $3, $4 if you do that. So here's how to build on that. Skip the lecture, hand them cash instead. One of the most powerful teaching moments is also one of the simplest. Instead of heading to the store with a credit card, give your teen a fixed amount of cash for back to school or college shopping and let them keep whatever they don't spend. The dynamic changes instantly. Every purchase comes with a visible trade-off, and spending less offers a direct personal reward. The Frappuccino math comes to life in real time. Is this $40 shirt worth it? Or would I rather pocket the difference? The key is to stand firm and not to pull out the plastic to cover a shortfall. A budget is not an allowance, it's a decision-making tool. Try assigning a clothing budget that covers everything: shoes, athletic gear, formal wear, and even basics like underwear. Help them map out anticipated needs at the start, then step back. If they blow through the budget early and can't afford what they need later, that discomfort becomes the lesson. It's the same principle as the Frappuccino. Every dollar only gets spent once, and choosing where it goes is the skill that matters most.
Next, let them make mistakes on purpose. This is the hardest part for most parents, but a poor decision that leads to real inconvenience teaches more than any hypothetical warning ever will. The teen who runs out of the clothing budget in October remembers that lesson in a way that no spreadsheet could replicate. As long as the consequences are manageable, resist the urge to step in. Mistakes build the emotional memory that shapes better judgment later. Next, you can have the talk before they buy the college hoodie. And this is probably a different talk than you're expecting, but one of the best pieces of advice we've heard from a high school counselor: have the money conversation before your child falls in love with the school. Set expectations about costs, trade-offs, and what you can realistically afford before the emotional attachment forms. A teen who understands that choosing one school over another could mean $100,000 in debt versus starting debt-free is making the same calculation as the Frappuccino, just with much bigger numbers.
Yep, love that. Before they leave for college, make sure they understand how money actually flows, paychecks, taxes, and how quickly it can all disappear. And boy, is that the truth. The credit card minimum payments are expensive traps that can linger for years. How to protect themselves from scams, identity theft, and overdraft fees, and that even small amounts invested early matter more than large amounts invested later, which is exactly where this conversation started. The real payoff goes beyond money. Teens who develop financial confidence tend to carry it into career decisions, relationships, and life choices. And I believe it was just last week we were talking about the statistics of relationships and money, and the odds of somebody staying in a relationship if the other party carries debt into it. So better have your teen to be aware and to go into. It'll help their relationships down the line if they don't carry that. While 30 states now require a personal finance course before high school graduation, there's no substitute for what kids learn through real experience at home. The most effective financial education is quiet and cumulative. It starts with something as small as a $5 coffee and builds into a way of thinking that lasts a lifetime. It's not about perfection. It's about giving young people the space to make decisions, learn from the results, and build judgment over time.
If you'd like to talk through these strategies with about any of this, from setting up a Roth IRA for your teen to structuring your first budget, we're here to help. So feel free to call us.
Yep, 922-8100. All right, Americans with higher incomes are starting to fall behind on payments. As more Americans fall behind on their mortgage and credit card payments, a new report sheds light on how financial stress is spreading beyond the lowest income borrowers. While credit counseling agencies typically help low-income people restructure their debt and avoid bankruptcy, now people who earn higher incomes have been walking through their doors. The average client seeking help from credit counseling agencies across the country now makes about $70,000 a year, with unsecured debt levels approaching $35,000, or about half of their annual income, according to the NFCC. Before the pandemic, the typical client enrolled in counseling made about $40,000 a year and carried $10,000 in unsecured debt, or about 25% of their annual income. Basically, the data shows that the credit counseling clients have rising debt-to-income levels and more are falling behind on payment plans.
The increasing number of missing payments by existing counseling clients is particularly concerning because those borrowers are already on structured repayment plans with fixed monthly payments based on budgets designed to be manageable. A separate new report this week from the Federal Reserve Bank of New York shows that the U.S. household debt in some form of delinquency rose to 4.8% in the fourth quarter, the highest level since 2017. Lenders can start reporting loans as delinquent once payments are at least 30 days past due.
Yep, many banks and analysts have played down that increase as a return to pre-pandemic norms. But the federal data also shows a worsening concentration of stress among lower-income borrowers. In the credit card and auto loan categories, serious delinquencies are near highs last seen in the aftermath of the 08-09 financial crisis.
Yeah, some 13% of people who took out FHA mortgages aren't current on their loans, an increase from a year earlier according to the report from ICE, the financial service company formerly known as Intercontinental Exchange. FHA loans are typically geared toward first-time homebuyers. There has been a big increase in FHA loans entering foreclosure. The data runs counter to other signs of economic strength. The Bureau of Labor Statistics reported that the strongest job growth in more than a year last month. The consumer spending rose 2.7% in 2025 as well.
Yep, but still, credit counselors say that there's economic fragility developing within many households. Several nonprofit counseling agencies, including Consolidated Credit and Money Management International, reported double-digit enrollment increases last year. These agencies provide one-on-one financial reviews and structured repayment programs in which creditors reduce interest rates and consolidate debts. What's important to note here is that the accounts in these managed plans are often reported as current rather than delinquent, muting signs of strain in traditional economic metrics.
Traditional credit models also may no longer fully reflect how distressed borrowers behave. About a third of borrowers seeking counseling have fallen behind on their bills, according to the Consolidated Credit. Many borrowers stay current on revolving credit while falling behind on other obligations like utility bills, because access to revolving credit has become a financial lifeline for them. But when the financial buffer runs out, the climb in stress isn't going to be gradual. It's going to be vertical.
Yep. Okay, so going back to relationships and finances, the date night talk that every couple needs. A romantic dinner with conversations about passwords, online accounts, and more. Anxiety can grow when one half of a couple doesn't have access to the family's digital life and finances. The division of labor in a marriage often results in one person handling the banking, subscriptions, passwords, among other things. That can leave the other person in the dark about how to locate and access the family's accounts. Here's the thing. You don't want to wait for the crisis to hit before you start gathering the facts about your family's financial picture. Ask yourself, do you really understand everything that your family spends money on every month? Each subscription, each membership? What about the insurance policies for your home, car, life insurance? Do you know where to make the most critical payments, say for your mortgage and auto payments? What about insurance payments? What about the banking and investment accounts?
The problem is that there's so many, and in our digital world, it is easy to not have the visibility of these items, much less know when one becomes delinquent because the person who traditionally handled things like this for your family is no longer around or capable of continuing these duties. And let's not forget about all the passwords to log into each of the accounts. Sherry recently helped a client with her fight with a large credit card company to get access to 3 accounts that her husband failed to add her onto. Now he has dementia and is not capable of engaging with the financial institution. What he should have done is to have added her as a co-owner on the accounts a long time ago, but he just forgot. And the unfortunate part is that now it's too late.
Too late, yep. We've personally seen firsthand the havoc created on a surviving spouse when the deceased person does not educate the surviving spouse or leave coherent records on what they did each month to manage the household finances. The concept of dividing the responsibilities of the house and family makes sense, but knowing what's happening is important. This can be accomplished with a simple spreadsheet that is created by both spouses. It can be saved on Google Drive or some similar, whatever you may use. This way, both spouses can continue to build out the spreadsheet until everything that affects the household finances is accurately recorded.
Taking the time to create a master list like this and annually review it will pay dividends for the surviving spouse. And for today, while both spouses are still able-minded, there is no time like now to do this. There's a low-threat way to open these conversations. You could say, if something happened to you, I'm concerned I wouldn't know where everything is. Do it now. Don't wait until an emergency to figure out how to access accounts.
Yeah. A couple of points that are critical. 1, ensure authorization. Even when you have joint accounts, a bank might consider one person the primary account holder. Make sure you're both authorized to talk to the bank and conduct transactions. 2, do a trial run. Whatever your partner would normally do in a given month, flagging fraudulent charges, transferring money, checking investments, you try to do it instead, and vice versa. 3, make sure you get the hang of handling the things your partner usually does, and that institutions recognize your ability to do so. And last, make it a regular date. You can set your own schedule, but quarterly is a nice time for him to go over any account changes and to update passwords and documents. If things are pretty stable, you might prefer doing it just once a year.
Now on to a more uplifting topic. More Americans are breaking into upper middle class. Research shows that droves of high earners have grown over the last 50 years, while low rungs of middle class have shrunk. Brandy Schilling went to a public high school in Corpus Christi, Texas. He graduated from the Texas A&M University with a petroleum engineering degree.
Yep, for the first decade of his career, he lived in an apartment and worried about paying for vacations. Then, in his early 30s, he landed a job at a chemical plant that paid about 15% more plus bonuses, and life felt a lot smoother. Around the same time, he bought a house on a golf course in the Houston suburb of Humble, Texas. Promotions and pay raises followed, and he saved more than $3 million for retirement. Almost without realizing it, Schilling ascended into the upper middle class. He views himself as an average Joe. He doesn't have to have a fancy car or to have the greatest TV, but when he wants something, he gets it. America's middle class is becoming wealthier as more families scale the economic ladder into higher earning groups. New research shows that the ranks of the affluent have grown markedly over the last 50 years or so, while the lower rungs of the middle class have shrunk.
In 2024, about 31% of Americans were part of the upper middle class, up from 10% in 1979, according to a report released this year by the right-leaning American Enterprise Institute. There is no single standard definition of middle class or upper middle class, and what counts as a hefty income in one city can feel slim in another. The AIE report from Stephen Rose and Scott Winship classified a family of 3 earning $133,000 to $400,000 in 2024 dollars as upper middle class. Households earning more were categorized as rich. The analysis looked just at incomes, not assets such as stocks or real estate. The rise in affluence has powered an American economy built on consumer spending and transforming the types of products and services companies offer.
These tend to be the people buying $1,700 bassinets that rock their babies to sleep, or extremely expensive food for their dogs, pricey gym memberships, luxury cruises, spots on business class airplane cabins, the list goes on. These are also people who fret about the high cost of top colleges and might still feel strained by rising expenses. Yale University this year offered free tuition to students from households earning up to $200,000. The gains span generations. Many baby boomers born to parents who grew up in the Great Depression are living very well on their savings, aided by steady Social Security checks and decades of stock portfolio gains that they can now tap into. Millennials, who everyone worried would be permanently set back by the 08-09 financial crisis, are earning solid incomes, buying homes, and surpassing their parents.
Many families are surprised to find that they have moved into this new economic tier and see themselves as comfortable, not rich. They tend to have jobs that are white-collar but not flashy. Think of accountants, not tech founders. This doesn't mean that all Americans are climbing the ladder, though. Entrenched inflation and higher prices on major necessities have pushed many families closer to the financial edge or locked them out of homeownership. Those costs weigh on high-earning families too, and for many are the reason that they don't feel wealthy.
Yep, the AEI report divided families into 5 different groups by income. 3 groups were in the middle: lower middle class, core middle class, and upper middle class. The authors found that more families now fall into the 2 highest earning groups, which are upper middle class and rich, and fewer fall into the 3 lower earning categories.
In 2024, about 19% of American families were considered poor or near poor, according to the AEI report, down from about 30% in 1979. The report defined that group as a family of 3 earning about $40,000 or less in 2024 dollars. The report's analysis used the federal poverty guideline to determine which group a family fell into. The economists considered a family earning between 5 times and 15 times the poverty guideline to be in the upper middle class, thus their parameters of $133,000 to $400,000. Upper income groups are swelling because wages have grown faster than prices over time, especially for white-collar workers with college educations, said Winship.
Yep, a college degree gives a family a very good shot at being in this group. 55% of people with a bachelor's degree and 68% with a graduate degree are upper middle class or rich, according to separate 2021 analysis using a similar methodology that Rose, the AEI study's co-author, produced at the Urban Institute as a non-resident fellow. Married or cohabitating couples have a better shot at getting into the upper middle class, in part because they often have 2 incomes and can split costs and pool their savings. More than 80% of people in the upper middle class and rich categories were in married or cohabitating households, the Urban Institute analysis found.
Gabriel Martinez's first job out of college in 2015 was in logistics and paid $50,000 a year. The 34-year-old now earns $180,000 a year at a big tech company after a series of raises and promotions, with bonuses and stock-based compensation on top of that. Martinez went into debt to buy an expensive car early in his career. His wife, Anna, took out more than $100,000 in student loans to pay for her master's degree. He downgraded to a cheaper car, and the couple cut expenses, such as going out to eat or buying clothes, to pay off her student loans.
Yep, and together they now have a flush emergency savings fund and own a 1,700 square foot home in Bourne, Texas, right outside of San Antonio. They tithe 10% of their income to their church and can easily cover one-off costs like a $4,000 medical bill from the birth of one of their 2 young children or a $1,200 HVAC system repair. Martinez said, "We both grew up in households where costs like that were catastrophic, whose father earned less than $40,000 a year working for the state of Texas. I'm very grateful to live in a nation where I don't have to stay where my dad was."
Instead of worrying about paying for groceries, Martinez said that worrying about how to make sure their children aren't spoiled in a town where some teens drive luxury cars to high school. A Pew Research Center analysis using a different methodology also discovered that the share of American families in higher income groups is growing. The analysis found that in 2023, 19% of Americans fell into upper income groups, up from 11% in 1971. Pew classified under income as those earning more upper income as those earning more than twice the median household income. So more than roughly $200,000 or more for a family of 3 in 2024. While inflation-adjusted incomes grew substantially for all groups, they rose much faster for the well-off families.
Richard Fry, a senior researcher at Pew, said that everybody's doing better, but the upper income households especially are doing better. This group has also experienced particularly big gains in wealth thanks to rising home prices and a stock market that increased in recent years. Even those who are happy with their own personal finances are often pessimistic about the broader economy. Schilling and his wife, Nancy Schilling, who works in an accounting department at a different chemical plant, bring in about $220,000 a year. He drives a 2015 Ford F-150, but splurged on an in-ground pool about 5 years ago.
Schilling thinks he undeniably is doing better than his own parents, who didn't go to college. But he isn't confident that his son Blake, a 23-year-old student living at home, will be able to keep the upward trajectory going. I think they're going to struggle, he said about his son's generation, citing the cost of living. While upper middle class Americans can easily afford clothes and electronics, many in it still feel stretched when it comes to paying for the pillars of a prosperous life, such as owning a home and sending their children to college.
Yep. Laura Shields, 46, and her husband took on credit card debt early in their careers. Their first experience with home ownership left them with a $25,000 loss when they sold their property in the depths of the 08-09 crisis. Covering monthly child care costs for their two sons meant living paycheck to paycheck. Shields, who lives in New Jersey, started feeling more comfortable financially only during the pandemic, when, like many other Americans, she got raises at work and her expenses went down. The couple earn about $240,000 a year now, which has allowed them to pay down a lot of their credit card debt and build savings. They can now afford extras such as school trips to Europe, etc.
Their older son will be heading to college in less than 2 years, and they told him they will cover the cost of an undergraduate degree, as Shields' parents did for her. But that almost certainly will require taking out loans. I try not to think about it, Shields said. Chris Wogan, 76, grew up in a row house in Philadelphia with 7 siblings in the 1950s and 60s. His parents, he recalled, struggled to buy him a baseball glove. Wogan worked as a judge and a Pennsylvania state representative after attending college and law school.
Wogan brings in about $175,000 a year from pensions, with additional income from stock market investments and Social Security on top of that. He and his wife Susan have taken several Viking cruises in Europe and just bought a home in a Pennsylvania retirement community with an indoor pool and an outdoor pool. I always thought of myself as middle class, he said. I probably did better than I thought I would do.
Yeah, I think $175,000 on pension would...
It's pretty okay.
Yeah.
Pretty okay. That's fixed. He's going to get that every single year no matter what.
Yeah, I would put you a little bit above middle class with that.
All right. Let's hit halftime.
Okay.
You've been listening to Your Money, brought to you by Lifespan Wealth Management, proudly serving Middle Georgia for over 30 years. Our mission? Helping folks just like you plan for a secure and stress-free retirement. Need a trusted financial advisor? Call us today at 478-922-8100 and schedule your complimentary consultation at our Macon or Warner Robins office. Want to learn more? Visit us anytime at retirerelax.com. Because when you plan smart, you can retire and relax. And here's something extra. We offer free educational seminars for the community. If your group needs a guest speaker, give us a call and let's make it happen. That's 478-922-8100. Now, let's get back to the show.
Okay. Treasury taps BNY Robinhood to help run Trump accounts for children. Wall Street firms have been vying to score a coveted role in the program. Bank of New York Mellon and Robinhood are the early winners in the Wall Street's race to play a role in setting up and running Trump accounts, a new savings tool for children created under last year's tax law.
Yep, the Treasury Department is announcing Monday that it has designated BNY as a financial agent to manage the initial accounts. The bank is partnering with Robinhood Markets to tap its design and technology know-how to develop a Trump account app and provide customer service, according to the department. Our task is clear: to provide the next generation of Americans with a world-class, intuitive platform to jumpstart their financial future, according to Vlad Tenev, Robinhood's chairman and chief executive. The app will be a custom white label product for Treasury, meaning it won't have BNY or Robinhood branding. Financial terms of the contract were not disclosed.
Wall Street firms have been angling for a role in the program since it was announced, in part because the accounts are a potential gateway for acquiring customers for life. Many of the biggest banks, brokerages, and asset managers have planned to pitch their services to the Treasury Department. The Wall Street Journal previously had reported on this. BNY's relationship with the Treasury dates back to the 18th century when it provided the federal government with its first loan. In a statement, BNY CEO Robin Vince, said Trump accounts will give more children a foundation for long-term financial security.
Tens of millions of children are eligible for the accounts, which can grow tax deferred for decades. All children with a Social Security number can have an account, but only those born between 2025 and 2028 who are U.S. citizens and have a Social Security number are eligible for the $1,000 in seed money from the federal government. So far, about 4 million children have been signed up, with about a quarter of them eligible for the $1,000 funding, according to the Treasury. Treasury said it would retain control over the app and operations for the initial accounts, but within a year, people will be able to roll over the accounts to other financial institutions. That could help those who want to consolidate their accounts at one brokerage and open the door to different investment lineups.
The accounts would still have to follow all the special Trump account rules. Companies will have to track where contributions come from for tax purposes. There are also strict dollar limits on contributions and tricky rules regarding distributions. Employers and charities can make contributions as well. Parents can sign up children now and elect the $1,000 seed money at trumpaccounts.gov or by filing Form 4547 when they file their taxes. Treasury will reach out to families who have signed up when accounts are ready to activate in the coming months. These are custodial accounts, so the custodian, typically a parent, would have to make decisions about rollovers and investments on behalf of the child. The account have to be invested in index funds of mostly U.S. stocks until age 18, when children generally can first take distributions. Funds must have an expense ratio of 0.1% or less.
In the year the child turns 18, the accounts start following tax rules for individual retirement accounts, or IRAs. Other accounts can provide better tax advantages, but one power play tax advisors are recommending stuff the accounts and then convert them into Roth IRAs for long-term tax-free retirement savings. I don't remember if it was last week. I think it was the week before. We had a big write-up in that show.
The breakdown of what you could actually get out of it.
Yeah, about stuffing these things as full as you possibly can and then converting them at a certain point to Roth so that it's tax-free for the child.
And I think it got to like $5 million or something.
It was something ridiculous. Something that a child could only appreciate if their parents set it up for them that way.
And it's just the compounding that gets it.
It's over
the earlier you
65
the earlier you get there.
Years. I mean, it's insane.
Okay. Why unretired seniors are picking up gig work to pay the bills. Before Stu Goldberg begins his night shift driving for Uber, he pulls out a notebook to read a handwritten list of reminders. No tickets, full stops, be careful backing up, and watch for pedestrians and bikes. With a PhD in neuropsychology and decades of experience running his own business, Goldberg, 74, didn't picture chauffeuring strangers around when he retired. But financially, things didn't go as planned, so he makes the best of his situation shuttling passengers through New York City at night.
Yep, Goldberg said, I like the freedom, flexibility, and meeting people. I like that most of the time I can get once or twice a day a good conversation with somebody. Goldberg is one of a growing number of Americans who have unretired in recent years. After concluding decades-long careers at hospitals, universities, and corporations, they return to the workforce due to insufficient retirement savings, rising living costs, and a desire to stay active. Some are finding gig work or contract jobs through apps or digital platforms, delivering people in parcels, taking care of pets,
or folding other people's laundry.
Yeah, or folding. It's something as simple as folding other people's laundry. Suits them because they can set their own hours and work or not when they choose. We're living longer, so people are working longer because they have to fund those extra years, said Carly Rozowski, Vice President of Financial Resilience at the nonprofit organization AARP. And this concept of retirement for most people as a cliff or a day they're working towards really isn't a reality for most.
Goldberg wanted to teach after winding down his software and telemarketing company, but he needed to earn more money than what the occasional adjunct professor job teaching statistics would pay. Uber came up, and it was not a bad choice for him because he was comfortable driving people and felt it could be a good way to make money and keep most of it. About 1 in 5 Americans over age 50 who aren't retired say that they have no retirement savings, according to a survey the AARP conducted in January of 2025. Retirees and employment experts say gig work has advantages and downsides. including limited job protections and wages that may be insufficient to cover on-the-job expenses. Here are some factors to consider.
Yep. Stay active, but know your limits. Barbara Barada, 72, retired as a pediatric nurse in 2018, but she got restless after a few years and signed up with the pet care app Rover, which connected her to jobs walking dogs and using her nursing skills to administer medications to cats. The work keeps her active. The job lets her get her steps in. In a leafy New Jersey suburb, Barada set out to coax Barkley, a mix of pit bull, beagle, and shepherd, into the afternoon air with a wind chill pushing the temperature down into the 20s.
Barada likes the physical nature of dog walking. She ran 2 half marathons in the past year, but notices that being older and not having knees that are totally great make steep or uneven terrain a challenge, even for her. She advises people in her age group to be careful about which pets they agree to walk. Some dogs are big and strong, which can be an issue, a lesson she learned very early on. An 80-pound dog, they're going to pull, and when they do, they're going to run away. Driving can be hard on the back and legs, and challenges of finding restrooms to use on the go becomes difficult to deal with as you age. Goldberg also cautioned that for those looking to do Uber.
Yeah, well, and I can imagine if you're walking an 80-pound dog and you need to use a restroom, that could be a challenge too.
As well, yeah.
All right, a social buzz. Days can feel long and lonely after one retires. Working part-time can provide social interaction. Baruch Schwartz, 78, was a wedding photographer for decades until the work became too physically demanding to do full-time. He started driving for Uber and Lyft and derived satisfaction from feeling needed. I feel like I'm on a mission, he said after taking a passenger home from a kidney dialysis appointment. Driving for Uber gives Goldberg a chance to meet a variety of people. One night he spoke with a Scottish historian about the movie Braveheart. Another night a passenger asked him how to know whether it was the right time to propose to his girlfriend. I'm amazed at what people will tell me about their relationships, Goldberg said.
Next is flexibility for a price. One of the draws of working for a gig platform is the ability to set your own hours. Barada's schedule allowed her to babysit her grandchildren. Goldberg also appreciated the flexibility of setting his own hours when he had a recent death in his family. But between the unplanned trip and a root canal, and no vacation or sick days offered by the job, he went several days without income. When that happens, even though you have the flexibility which you like, and you don't have to call anyone and say, I'm not driving today, you still don't make money that day. And you're still paying for insurance and all your other expenses, Goldberg said.
Yep. Lastly, make sure the work is worth it. Before investing time into gig work, research what percentage the company takes from the worker's earnings. The house always wins, so the amount of money you're going to get as a driver or delivery worker is very much controlled by the platform, according to Alexandria Ravenel, a sociologist and gig economy researcher at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. There are no workplace protections, so if you get injured on the job, if you have any types of problems, if you have a car accident, for example, you are entirely out of luck. Uber maintains commercial auto insurance coverage on behalf of its drivers, although New York City requires drivers to hold that insurance themselves, said Uber spokesman Ryan Thornton.
Goldberg hit 3 nasty potholes in 3 weeks, paying $144 each time to replace the tires. He lost money those weeks despite working. I'd say most drivers are not happy with the money that they're making unless they're working more hours than they're willing to do, is something that Goldberg told the reporter. Lisa Kay, LK Foyle, 64, of Orange, Texas, found a way to maximize her earnings on Poplin, an app which connects her to clients who need help with their laundry. She has seniority on the app, which allows workers on the app to choose and accept express orders, which pay higher rates, and she can then decline lower-paying jobs.
Foyle marvels at the state of some families' dirty laundry. All the socks are inside out, all the underwear is in the pants, and you've got to check every single pocket, or you're washing marbles or frogs or the snacks that they had that day. I'm sure she sees a lot.
Yeah.
Barada's dog walking income supplements several small pensions and Social Security benefits. She charges $20 for a half-hour walk, not including her driving time to and from the location. Rover keeps about 20%, she said. The $1,000 to $2,000 that she makes per month helps pay her bills.
I would say for people that want something to do, for example, hanging out with animals to driving around town, if that can help pay your bills, why not? It really comes down to what your goals are and the situation you're in. If you're coming up short on expenses and have planned to volunteer in an animal shelter, Rover could be the option to meet animals while covering some of your expenses. The important thing is to make the most out of your retirement. So if you're short at the end of the month, see if there's a side gig that you could do that includes doing something that you would have done regardless of being retired.
All right, switching gears. This is the home size empty nesters say feels just right. The tiny house movement has been taking over for a few years now, and it looks likely that it's not going to lose its steam or its charm. Moving into a smaller home isn't as much of a sacrifice as you might think. You're scaling back on the physical square footage, but you'll save big in other areas. An 800 square foot house might sound claustrophobic, especially if more than one person is planning to live there full time, but it's the ideal amount of space for homeowners looking to downsize.
The benefits of downsizing. Downsizing to a smaller house is a practical, cost-efficient option, especially for retirees. Cutting back on square footage can also mean cutting back on the maintenance that goes into caring for a larger house, which can be both physically and financially taxing. Less upkeep means more time and funds for things like travel. Designer and licensed residential contractor Judy Riddle believes downsizing can also be quite freeing for homeowners. It can mean much less maintenance and lower utility bills. It can also mean having fewer things around us. And those are the pieces that we have carefully chosen. And that can be a wonderful feeling. A popular thread among the experts is to be honest with yourself and how you really live. Before downsizing, spend a few months really paying attention to the items and spaces in your current home that you actually use, notes Riddle. In fact, you may surprise yourself with how and where you live in your own home.
So just how small is 800 square feet? An 800 square foot house is more significant than it actually sounds. A home of this size can pack in 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, a kitchen, and a living space. Plus, remember the creative use of outdoor spaces like the porch and patio for enjoying the great outdoors in the South. An 800 square foot floor plan is even enough room to host supper club or overnight guests.
What to consider before downsizing? There are many things to consider before making a big shift in your lifestyle. It's important to consider exactly how you live. Lauren Kelly and Eric Moser of Moser Design Group broke down a few important points of consideration before taking the leap into smaller space living. Think about how you really live. Consider where you spend the most time. If you prioritize the main living spaces while removing spaces that aren't used on a daily basis, this will naturally lead to a smaller home design. Remember your location. Here's looking at you, Southern readers. In the South, our home's footprint naturally extends outdoors with our porches and courtyards, which can greatly expand the amount of living space without needing to build more walls. Some of the most favorite places in a house can actually be outside if they are designed with the correct proportions and comforts, notes Kelly.
Yep. Try to forget about resale. Oftentimes, home buyers consider the next owner who will want that extra bedroom or two, or that office, or that tub. More often than not, we find that many people don't actually need those spaces. We find that sticking to your needs and making it possible to add on or expand with a guest cottage or space above a garage in the future gives the freedom to build a smaller house without fear of resale in the future, according to Kelly. Consider your time. Similarly, a second mindset shift involves removing the pressure to design to accommodate the entire family visiting for a holiday. This is particularly applicable to empty nesters or single people, according to Kelly. Spend your money where you spend most of your time, not on rooms that you rarely use. You'll end up with a home that is easier to maintain, more efficient, and less expensive to live in.
Another thing to do is look at your community. We are seeing a trend for both younger and older homeowners to live in walkable communities, either in historic towns or new neighborhoods. Places that have a variety of housing options, easy access to daily needs, and common open spaces for recreation. This makes it even easier to live in a smaller house because there are community spaces for larger gatherings, parks and community gardens that can replace some activities that may have required a larger individual yard, and neighbors who may have an extra bedroom or guest suite above a garage that can accommodate extra family members once or twice a year.
Get creative with every inch. Maximizing every inch of a cozy cottage will save it from feeling like a shoebox. Decluttering is key. Prioritize the things you can't live without and eliminate the rest. Smart storage solutions will also save big on space, like sliding a stackable washer and dryer into a closet, or display cookbooks on open shelving so your collection can double as decor. Extending living areas outdoors can also help your home feel bigger, like centering an alfresco sitting room around a back patio. Riddle points out a few things to keep in mind when designing a smaller space.
One thing she says is to go high. Higher ceilings really do make small spaces feel larger. You want to feel cozy but not cramped. Be minimal with color. Stick with a single color palette to keep the space from feeling choppy. Remember the windows. Lifting window treatments as high as possible draws the eyes up and will add layers. Another thing you can do is bring in plants. Placing large to tall plants in corners can draw the eyes up and also add a natural component. Plants also provide natural texture, which is very important. In fact, adding texture and layering with accessories and pillows will create a warm and inviting home no matter the size.
While tiny houses are not for everyone, this smaller house size might help you prioritize your family's needs and fit your lifestyle depending on your stage of life. Family with 3 kids, probably not the best place for right now. Empty nesters, maybe you should call your real estate agent.
Now on to our weekly scam. How a fake utility worker cost one resident $8,300. All right, here's a story that really stood out this week because it's not your typical phone or internet scam. This one actually happened in person. In Prince George's County, a man went door to door pretending to be a utility worker, targeting residents. And in this case, an old homeowner. What makes this especially concerning is how believable it can feel when someone shows up at your door dressed and acting like they belong there.
Yeah, I've had this happen to me before. This can be scary. That in-person angle changes everything. When you get a phone call, there's at least some distance between you and the other party. You can hang up, you can think about it, whatever you need to do. But when someone is physically standing in front of you, speaking confidently, maybe even wearing something that looks official, it creates a completely different level of pressure and trust. That's exactly what the scammer relied on.
So here's how it played out. The scammer told the homeowner there was an urgent electrical issue, something serious, even a potential fire hazard, and that the key part of this, the moment you introduce the idea of danger, especially something like a house fire, people stop thinking critically and start reacting emotionally. You're not asking, is this legitimate? You're thinking, how do I fix this right now?
Right. And that urgency is what drives the whole scam forward. Once the homeowner is worried, the scammer takes things to the next step. He gets inside the home. Now he's not just a stranger at the door anymore. He's someone who appears to be inspecting a problem, pointing things out, maybe using technical language. That builds even more trust, even though it's all completely fabricated.
And you kind of see this all over the internet is when people, they say if you're carrying a ladder or if you have like a high-res reflector vest, people will just let you in anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
They don't question. You'll see videos of people just walking into movie theaters. They have a ladder with them.
Everybody assumes
they just assume that you're supposed to be there.
Right.
And that's the issue that I think that is really coming up with this is that you just kind of like, why would this not be real?
Right.
I think that's kind of the issue that is really hurting these people.
For sure.
And then comes the ask, which is where everything escalates. He tells the homeowner the issue needs to be fixed immediately and requests payment on the spot. No paperwork, no official billing process, just a direct request for money under pressure. And unfortunately, the homeowner went along with it.
Yeah. And the total loss here was over $8,000, specifically $8,300. That's a huge hit, especially for someone on a fixed income. And it shows how effective this kind of scam can be when it combines urgency, authority, and that face-to-face interaction.
Authorities pointed out that the scams like this often target older adults, particularly people who are more likely to be home during the day. It's not random, it's very intentional, and scammers are evolving. It's not just emails, phone calls anymore. They're showing up in person, which makes it harder to spot if they're not expecting it.
Here's the big takeaway. Real utility companies simply do not operate this way. They don't show up unannounced and claim there's an emergency that requires immediate payment. They don't pressure you for money on the spot, and they don't bypass official billing systems. So if someone ever comes to your door with that kind of urgency, saying something needs to be fixed right now and asking for payment now, that's your red flag. That's the moment to slow things down, not speed them up.
Exactly. The safest move is to not let them in. Don't hand over any money and contact your actual utility company directly using the number you trust, not anything they give you. Because as we're seeing, scammers are getting more creative, more convincing, and in cases like this, a lot more bold. And I'm especially surprised with how many people have like Ring cameras that they would go up and put their face while they're scamming people. Like, I feel like it's a lot easier for scammers online because, I mean, how are you going to track them down? But if you're walking up to a person and they have a Ring cam, which I know a lot of people at this point have at our Google Home Ring camera.
Sure. We do.
Exactly. We do too.
Yeah.
And I think that for them to put their face on it, it's, I don't know if it's cocky or if they just think they can't get caught. I feel like that.
Or maybe they feel like if they get their payment today, they'll worry about the rest later.
Yeah.
You know, they're on to the next house and maybe they'll get payment from them too. Maybe they feel like they can make a couple grand today and then worry about
and then kind of just
the ramifications
or something. But
of being on 56 different Ring cameras.
Exactly.
I mean, there's no way around that.
No.
Thank goodness for technology being the way it is.
Yeah, I feel like those, maybe that's just a short-term thing because I feel like those would get the people caught pretty quickly. I feel like the Microsoft scams and stuff like that and kind of run in the background because it's done overseas and it's not really something that local police or I guess even the FBI can really do anything about. But when you have someone physically going up to your door, I mean, when you got a picture of him, it's kind of hard to
escape
to argue that one
for sure.
When you get caught, it's, oh no, that wasn't me. Well,
I think the common denominator, the most common thing we see amongst any kind of scams we cover on this show, whether it's, you know, the one I talked about a year ago when somebody sent a Google image of my street, my house, I don't know if you remember that one, and demanded that that we send them money in cryptocurrency. And I can't remember exactly. It was something like, hey, we have files from your phone and we'll release them and you need to send. The common denominator amongst all this one that we just talked about, any of them is the urgency. Tax ones that we've come across, ones where business entities, they say you need to file for your business entity, and they all want payment right now, and they make it seem very urgent to scare people into, oh my goodness, am I going to be penalized? What's the consequence of me not doing this right now? So that's always a red flag, is look at the urgency that they're trying to place on the situation, because that is, in all likelihood, it means that it's not something legitimate. So we've got a couple minutes left. I will talk about a case that I came across recently. Got a client, she's a widow, and many years ago, 20 plus years ago, she became a widow. She's in her 70s, and there are a few IRAs that her former husband had invested at various places, you know, Schwab, maybe Vanguard, I can't remember where they are. And she first came to us maybe a year and a half ago, and we did some other things not related to those IRAs for her to help her out. And she's a great lady. I've gotten to develop a relationship with her and very fond of her. But she made it very clear in the early goings of our relationship, I don't want to touch those IRAs because they're sentimental to me. They were my husband's, and he always, you know, chose how they were invested, and they've done well, et cetera. And so I respected that. And we didn't talk about the IRAs. I didn't press her. I didn't try to bring those accounts over for us to manage them. Well, we met again recently. Keep in mind, this is a year plus into our relationship. And we were she may need some money for an investment she wants to make. So we were looking at different avenues for where to get it. And we're looking at those IRAs. And I told her, I said, look, these for your age, for where you are in life, these are just simply too risky. They're almost 100% in equities. And I don't feel comfortable. I know that they're sentimental to you. They're your husband's. And it got to the point where it really just didn't make sense for them to sit in an old account, not being looked after by somebody like we do. We actively manage our clients' portfolios. We're looking out for their best interest. And so if somebody's later stages in life, and we see this all the time, they're too risky, we can help. So give us a call, 922-8100. Have a great weekend.
Thanks for listening to Your Money, produced by Lifespan Wealth Management. As financial advisors, the main thing they do is provide retirement planning and advice and manage their clients' investment accounts. If you're looking for a financial advisor, please contact their office at 478-922-8100 to set up your complimentary consultation. You can learn more about them by visiting their website, retirerelax.com. And if you have a question or a topic that you would like them to cover in next week's broadcast, you can email Randy at rfmoney.com. They look forward to connecting with you next week. Have a great weekend, everyone. Securities and investment advisory services offered through Osaic Wealth Incorporated, member FINRA SIPC. Osaic Wealth is separately owned, and other entities and or marketing names, products, or services referenced here are independent of Osaic Wealth.